We've all made a three-point shot at least once in our lives, so we all know the action that our body must complete in order to make that shot. By action, I mean the exact motion that our legs and arms carry out to shoot the ball straight and the correct distance that corresponds to where you are in the court. So why is it so hard to exactly replicate this motion multiple times? The answer isn't simple, but I'll try to explain it in this video. The reason some people are better than others at shooting is that they are able to replicate this exact motion with less variance. Any small variance in the motion will change where the ball ends up going. If your hand moves in a slightly different motion, the ball might miss the hoop a few inches to either side. If your legs extend slightly too quickly, then you'll probably miss long, as you'll have generated too much power. Steph Curry replicates this theoretical exact motion in practice with the least variance in the NBA, which is why we see countless videos of him draining consecutive threes at training. This is also the reason why he's the best shooter in the NBA. Casual basketball players, like me and you, who aren't consistent shooters, replicate this motion with far more variance when compared to the average NBA player, who shoots about 36% from three in games. The relationship that we have with the average NBA player when it comes to average shot motion variance is the same relationship that these average NBA shooters have with Steph Curry. We all just lie at different points on the spectrum of variance, with the greatest shooters of all time at one end, and the most casual basketball players at the other end. If you've ever played basketball with someone who's never played basketball before, you'll know that their shot is going to be different every time. So if we all lie on this theoretical spectrum of average shot motion variance, the question remains if we can move up this spectrum, and if so, how we can move up the spectrum. Well, the answer is obvious in one way. We can practice. Practice consists of going out and shooting shots over and over again with the intention of laying down muscle memory for the correct shot motion. This muscle memory will make your body move in an increasingly consistent manner as long as you continue practicing. This is the reason why people who play a lot of basketball are overwhelmingly better shooters than those who rarely play basketball, regardless of how bad their shooting form might appear. Even NBA players with the worst shooting form relative to the rest of the NBA will still shoot better than someone like me because they've practiced an insane amount compared to me. But that doesn't mean that they have better shooting technique, nor does it mean that you should try to imitate their technique. Practice isn't the only way to reduce your average shot motion variance though. There is another way that we can move up the spectrum that is very well known. However, the specifics of it are not so clear. This factor is what we would call shooting form. Most basketball fans can tell you if someone has nice shooting form or ugly shooting form. They could also tell you if someone has smooth or choppy, disjointed shooting form. From these judgments, most basketball fans would be able to infer roughly how good a shooter is just from looking at their form. What most people could not do is tell you why these shooters have effective shooting form or why they have ineffective shooting form. And that's what I try to do on this channel when I talk about shooting technique. I outline what I believe the specifics are of good shooting form. That's why I describe the details of what the best shooters do and don't do. And I also describe the details of what the worst shooters do and don't do. This is why people who say that someone like Derrick Rose or LeBron James is an okay shooter as a way of defending how poor their form is are missing the point. They're good shooters relative to the entire basketball community because they've practiced shooting for thousands more hours than the average basketball player. Derrick Rose, LeBron James, and Steph Curry all seem to work as hard as anyone else in the world at basketball. So we can assume that they're at the peak of what practice can do for an individual. And the only logical explanation as to why Steph Curry shoots 43.6% from 3, LeBron James shoots 34.2% from 3, and Derrick Rose shoots 29.8% from 3 is that each one has objectively worse shooting form than the person preceding them. If they've all roughly practiced the same amount, then we can infer that LeBron and Rose have shooting techniques that make them more prone to variance in their shooting form, therefore making them more likely to miss when shooting a 3. Going back to my earlier explanation of the factors that go into making a good shooter, I would like to add one clarifying point. Another factor in certain situations can be a shooter's mentality. This is true of everyone in the clutch. Having a weak mentality can make you a bad shooter even if you have elite time spent practicing and elite shooting form. But for people's career three-point percentage, mentality is only a tiny issue, because most three-point shots are taken before the last few minutes of the game and in games that don't have much on the line, which allows people with poor mentality to still succeed as shooters over a long career. The exception here can be found at the free throw line. For some players with extremely weak mentalities, like Dwight Howard and DeAndre Jordan, their mentality can have effect on their shot every time they go to shoot it. This is why Dwight Howard can supposedly shoot over 80% from the line in practice, but only shoots 57.5% from the line during games. His mentality is increasing his average shot motion variance every time he shoots a free throw in a game, to use the terminology from earlier in this video. The final factor worth considering is coordination. It's fair to say that some people were born with superior coordination than others, which would therefore give them an advantage when it comes to their ability to shoot. This is certainly true, but remember that it's purely a genetic factor, so it's out of your control. It may be a part of what makes Steph Curry so good at shooting, but it can explain the gap in shooting between him and poor shooters like Derrick Rose, especially when players like Rose are known for making incredibly difficult shots like reverse layups, which require just as much base coordination as shooting. So, in conclusion, I've given you the three most important factors of shooting at basketball: time invested in practice, shooting form, and mentality. On this channel, I try to help you improve one of them, your shooting form. The amount that you invest in the factor of practice is totally up to you, and the factor of your mentality seems to be mostly out of your control. I hope this video has helped you to see how I conceptualize shooting form. If you enjoyed it, then please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.